Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the Plus16, our live monthly webinar series. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We know that you are busy, and as always, we intend to pack meaningful data into an efficient 30-minute window. My name is Anthony Barada, and I'm CTO for 2Plus2 Partners. And today we're talking about creating information management policies in SharePoint. Drop any questions you have into the chat window as we go through the presentation. We'll save time for a Q&A at the end. We will be recording this session and sending you a link. Additionally, we always post transcripts of our webinars on our blog. So let's get started. As any business grows, digital documents tend to grow exponentially along with it. In the dark ages, your only choice was a file system, local or networked, and organized, hopefully, with a pyramid-style file folder hierarchy. You were lucky to have any search capability that didn't break down as your digital pile of files grew out of control. With the advent of SharePoint 2010, the addition of document centers and metadata, and enhanced document types, we had the first set of SharePoint tools for reorganizing your now flood of digital documents. These tools were updated and expanded over the last 2 SharePoint revisions to give you more control, to help you contain your continually rising tide of digital documents. The challenge for any business using SharePoint today is where to start and how to build your flood control system, and additionally to maintain it as the document deluge continues. SharePoint uses the term information management policy as the catch-all for several features that, when combined in a sensible manner, can help you, unlike King Canute, stem the digital tsunami lurking on your network. The challenge is that certain design decisions and feature setups have to be done close together or even in parallel in order to build a working information management policy. So what are these parts that comprise the whole of your SharePoint information management policy? I'm going to list them quite rapidly, so if you need notes, please review the transcript when we're done. They are the Content Syndication Hub. And inside the Content Syndication Hub, we can have custom content types, custom metadata, retention rules. Inside those retention rules, we can do workflow actions or we can do file move actions. We also need to make decisions on records management. Do we do in-place records management or do we build a records center? Inside a records center, we need to have a records center connection in order to talk to it. We need a drop-off folder with metadata routing rules and target folders for dropping the files into. We need to also set document libraries and document center custom default content types. And then we need to focus on corporate-wide adoption. That's a lot to handle. The design pattern for setting up your company's information management policy is not a linear process and circles back on several of these parts in order to fully complete all the necessary steps to have a working policy. Additionally, some of these design decisions need to be well thought out and incorporated into your company's DNA in order to ensure compliance with the new rules. An important note, while Microsoft offers global document deletion policies for your SharePoint systems, we are discussing a more finessed way to manage your digital documents than just a blanket deletion of aged out documents. The first part of building your information management policy is probably the biggest hurdle to overcome, designing your default content types. The challenge is designing something basic that suits your company that can be expanded if needed. Simple is better because you can easily over-design any new content types your company might utilize, therefore slowing or even preventing adoption. Can you under-design? Not really. You'll need to create at least one custom content type in order to access the last update date and the document creation date of any document content type. Microsoft does not allow you to access these 2 attributes via the default document content type. However, without at least one column of metadata for the user to categorize their document, your document record center drop-off library, also called a content organizer, will not have anything to act on in order to route the documents into the record center document libraries. These are the 2 main design philosophies when it comes to building content types: going wide, large number of very specific document content types, or going deep, utilizing multi-column metadata to tag and categorize your documents. As with most things, you're going to need to do a bit of both to get what you want. Lastly, decisions we'll be discussing later will most likely cause you to revisit the design decisions we're discussing next. Hence, the feedback loop and the feeling of a never-ending cycle of discovery and change as you walk through this process. One more important point before we move on. You'll want to design all your custom content types within your content syndication hub. We'll discuss later why this is important. But in order to get your content types adopted within all your site collections, you need to start with a central location and make sure you can push and pull your customizations completely throughout your SharePoint installation. Building new content types for each document type you have for your company is probably the path of least resistance. The content type itself becomes the categorization label, and you don't need much more than selecting the invoice content type to know what you have at a later date. Additionally, one of the biggest benefits of going with multiple content types is you can attach a default template to the content type and ensure that anyone creating a new document is using the approved document template. If they create a new document via SharePoint and not cloning it via an existing document. The downside of multiple content types is that each content type will have its own set of information policy rules. If you want to standardize the retention rules among your content types, you'll have to touch each one in order to update and synchronize them. If your company has a set of documents that are highly structured and your employees need to be able to access the most current template or version of that starting document, you'll want to create a content type for each of your needed templates. Examples are invoices, expense reports, and company correspondence letters that need letterhead and default company information. The opposite of building a multitude of content types is to design your content type to support multiple document types. Your focus is on a single or a limited set of content types. The challenge here is to include enough custom columns and multiple choices per column to ensure proper cataloging of your documents. The choices can be embedded into a custom column, selected from a custom list, or from managed metadata provided at the site collection or tenant farm level. When designing your content type customizations, reusability and sustainability should be the focus. Can your content type customization scale as your business grows or your document needs change over time? The downside of going deep is you will have to incorporate all of the document properties and categories into one or a couple of content types. New categories will need to fit into the existing columns or will require their own columns and metadata, expanding the complexity each time. If you have a limited set of documents or are only interested in utilizing the metadata for necessary actions on documents, going deep might be a great option for your company. We need to step out of our focus on the discussion of content types to briefly discuss the different record management options within SharePoint, because this decision will affect how we run our retention rules. The two main options are in-place record management and building one or more record centers. These two management philosophies are not mutually exclusive, but being feckless with your decision will cause confusion and directly affect your company's ability to support an audit or e-discovery process. The choices are pretty self-explanatory. In-place record management allows the site collection admin or the business rules built to manage the documents to set a target file as a record at its current location. The file is not moved anywhere, but instead becomes read-only and non-volatile. The document is only removed from its current location when the business rules allow it. For example, expiration of the document and deletion. This is a good choice for team and project documents where archiving the whole subsite or site collection is needed at a predetermined end date of the collaboration. A record center is akin to a basement storage location where a project manager or department employee will bring a box full of stale documents to the record center manager, have the set cataloged, and receive a document ID for tracking the document set for future reference. By design, the target documents are moved from their development or public viewing location to the record center by a document processing rule or a manual archive process. It's set as read-only in a giant digital warehouse for eventual e-discovery or automated digital shredding when the predetermined time has expired. While your decision on in-place records or building a record center is not an either-or decision, you do need to understand your company's document archival and expiration requirements to make the best decisions going forward. These requirements and design decisions will loop back on your content type decisions, causing you to revisit them for changes and updates. The end result is you have two life cycles or three states of a document: in use, archived, and expired. An in-use document is needed by a team or department on a regular basis. An archived document is a document that has been declared a record and is no longer changeable. An expired document is a document that is no longer needed by the business, even for reference, and can be destroyed. Whether you archive the document in place or move the document to a record center for archival, the timing of those actions is dependent upon your company and regulatory needs. Now that you have custom content types set up, or at least the design phase of your content types, the retention rules for each of your content types are the next set of decisions that need to be made. First off, what are you required to do with your business documents? For example, your business tax documents might need to be retained for 7 years, employee records for 10 years. Research and reporting documents that have to do with regulatory oversight might be 20 years. These required retention rules might require you to re-examine your content types and rework them to better support the different retention rules needed. This is another example of the feedback loops that will require constant refinement of your content types, and it exacerbates the analysis paralysis discussed previously. The retention rules will be specific to each of these content types you created earlier, and specific rule requirements may necessitate the creation of additional content types. However, retention rules are not just for clearing out expired documents. They also give you a chance to clean up existing document libraries and document centers by moving stale documents to a new location, like a record center, or identifying those documents that are candidates for in-place records management. We've discussed the pros and cons of record centers and in-place management previously because it pertains directly to your design decisions for retention rules. However, the decisions we need to have next is whether to use the file move feature or execute workflow feature of the retention rules. Another note, there is an option to work with custom retention rules within SharePoint, but the custom retention rules need to be built via code Visual Studio and uploaded to the web farm as a new solution or feature. Therefore, the custom retention rules are not currently available for SharePoint Online. So executing a workflow when a retention rule is being activated gives you the most flexibility for decisions on what to do with a specific document. You can set up an approval workflow, email notifications on actions taken, reset the document lifecycle, and even move the document to a holding area for action. The limitations are only the available workflow actions, which are quite numerous. Additionally, third-party tools can extend the available workflow actions and increase your company's file management options. So what do you need to do with each content type? What do you want to do with each content type? If you don't need user notification, document metadata analysis, or approval or user intervention when a document status changes, you don't need to utilize a workflow. The other option for retention rules is to automatically move a target document to a drop-off or content organizer folder. This is the simplest option for all the document lifecycle actions. A document might hit a 5-year mark since its last update, and it qualifies for moving to a content organizer. The retention rules assigned to that document's content type make sure that that happens without having to keep track manually of document ages and locations. No user intervention is expected when this rule activates. This rule is simple because all the decisions are made by the content organizer. However, you can increase the complexity of the file movement rules by assigning different content organizers to each content type. The culmination of all your content type design work will end up being utilized by your content organizer. If you decide to forego in-place records management and migrate stale documents to a record center, the content organizer holds all the rules needed to route the documents to their archival location using the metadata designed and implemented earlier. HR documents can be routed to a specific HR library or folder, employee expense reports to their own library or folder. Any of the metadata values of the target content type can be utilized for document routing. As mentioned earlier, if you went with a simple but wide content type solution, just the content type itself can be used to route the target document. The power of the content organizer is creating a series of hierarchical rules that will be used to identify and route a document. The rules are ranked so you can go from highly specific to more general document types and route accordingly. Lastly, if a document is not acted upon within the rule set defined, a notice can be sent to the Record Center administrators for manual routing. Again, design decisions on content type metadata may need to be revisited once you get to this phase of your information management policy construction, because as you know, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Now it's time to propagate your design decisions through your SharePoint site. There are two major parts to ensuring your new information management policies are propagated through your SharePoint environment. The first is utilizing a content syndication hub. The second is making sure your new content types are the default choice when creating or uploading new documents. The first part is relatively simple. As we mentioned earlier, make sure all your content type customizations start within a content syndication hub. This special site collection is needed to ensure that your customizations are pushed to all the site collections within your SharePoint installation. Additionally, changes and updates you make to your existing content types are propagated. Update a template attached to your employee expense report content type, and relatively shortly, all the site collections will have the updated template. The second part is unfortunately not so simple. Setting your custom content types as the default for custom document libraries and document centers. Since the underlying structure of SharePoint has changed and is changing still, and SharePoint Online has closed off all of the formerly acceptable ways to ensure custom features are a part of any new site collection or sub-site build, you are now solely dependent upon the CSOM or client-side object model for ensuring custom features are propagated to your new site collections and sub-sites. You can use CSOM via a local web application, an Azure Cloud Web application, or even just PowerShell scripts available to your admin. Either way, you'll need to make sure your request and build process incorporates the scripts needed to customize your site collections and subsites to ensure compliance and default use of your custom content types. There's no magic bullet in this area. The latest versions of SharePoint have definitely increased the day-to-day administrative demands in order to utilize some of the more powerful features of the platform. So, we've reached the end of our construction list and probably have cycled several times through each of our steps to create a solid information management policy that works for your business. Now you need to evangelize and train your users to utilize the new features. Support them as they grow to understand the need for identifying the correct document type, update the custom document types based on real-world feedback, and remind them when their file disappeared to when it was identified as stale and migrated to the Record Center. Fortunately, SharePoint search features are not constrained by site collection boundaries, and your employees should be able to find all their documents, both active and archived, no matter where they live. Well, thank you for your time today in revisiting and discussing the information management policy in SharePoint Online. If you have any questions, now would be a good time to bring them up. I see here that we have a couple. The first one is, can you override a rule for a specific document? Not directly. The only way to override a retention rule is to put a hold on that document during the e-discovery process. The e-discovery process allows you to override any additional rules that may be acting on that particular document for that particular content type. Obviously, because if it's considered a legal document for process of a litigation, you don't want that document to be moved or deleted. Can you reset the clock on a document? Yes, you can. There's a couple different ways of dealing with that. You can do that within a workflow if needed. Someone can manually activate that, or you can actually just check in and check out the document as if it had been updated, and that will reset the clock because then the update date has been dated. Can documents be moved out of the Record Center? Yes, they can. It's usually a manual process. You normally do not have workflow that does that type of process, so it's something where user intervention is required. Are versions available in the document Record Center? Yes. When you activate your retention rules either via workflow or via file move actions, you have the option to carry all the versions with you while moving that document, or only moving the most current published document. So you have an option for doing either. Can you move old versions but still maintain the current? You can't with a retention rule, but you can with workflow. But again, if you're going to target a specific version, you're not going to bring along all of them. You're only going to bring along a targeted version. And lastly, can content types be changed once the rules are assigned? Yes, you can customize them on the fly and then propagate those to your SharePoint sites. Obviously, any rules that have already activated can't be changed retroactively, but as from the time forward, from when you make your customization to the future, the new rule will be active. I think we've run out of questions. If there's any more, please feel free to email me. My email address is again on the last slide, or just if you decide you want a free half-hour consultation, please give us a call and we can set that up for you. I wanted to remind you that our next webinar will be Tuesday, December 6th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and our topic for the December webinar is Managed Navigation versus Structured Navigation. Hope to see you then, and thank you and have a good day.